if you look financially, you messaged me something along the lines of you make more in a month now than you did in a year, or
It's getting close to a week now.
in a week.
That,
Wow.
yeah, something like that. Yeah, I can't do the get up, go and work for somebody else, do a monotonous job all the time. So my life has become infinitely easier. There's never been an opportunity like this to take something without massive overheads and to be able to run it on the scale of a multinational corporation. I just don't think there's ever been anything like it.
How big are some of your clients? What's their annual revenue?
We've just actually had the go ahead from one that's doing about $400 million.
400 million a year.
In fact, we're in talks with one that's doing 1.5 billion. I was just looking to get to 10 grand a month. We make that in a few days now, and we're only really just getting started.
Hi there, it's Dan here from Flexxable. One of my students just landed a $400 million client after buying my book, The Instant AI Agency. Let's dive in and see how he did it. Okay, so this video is a little bit different to the way that I normally do things. I actually interviewed a guy called Rob Brown who bought my book a little while back, and he's had some incredible results. The interview really is about his journey all the way from kind of getting started, what he was doing before, how he grew this thing, and where he's at now. This guy just takes action. It's epic to hear his story. Check it out, and I'll see you on the other side. Hey Rob, how you going, mate?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Yeah, how are you?
Good, thanks. Good. So you bought my book a while back, right? I don't know how long ago it was. It's probably coming up a year, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, a year and a bit.
Yeah, a year and a bit. So just tell me a bit about what you're doing before and what that life was like back then.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been in sales for 20 years, 20 odd years.
Yeah.
Never known anything different, really. I mean, I've worked in call centres, started at the bottom, like most people did, selling holidays originally.
Yeah.
Um, I've moved into finance, did secured loans, became a mortgage advisor, and then the world fell apart in 2008.
Yeah.
So I jumped across to insolvency. Since then, I've done claims, business to business for loyalty. I've sold pretty much everything. But along that route, I've tried a few times to work for myself, to go self-employed, So
yeah.
It never really worked. I did okay in some occasions, but I could never really get out of the trap that I was in, the rat race that I was in. So I've always been looking for that next big idea. Obviously when I saw your book advertised, it seemed to make sense to me. It was new, it was exciting, it was something that I thought I could do well at.
Yeah, I think it's good timing as well, right? We kind of knew that the world was about to change with AI, and I guess it was the right place at the right time.
Yeah,
which is cool. So, tell me, because I know you were working in charge of a call center and stuff like that. Tell me, what you were doing there, what that life was kind of like, and whether or not, could you see a way out of that, or was there a progression that you could make, or what was the situation there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one. I mean, when I moved over to insolvency after the world financial crash, since then, since about 2009, 2010, I moved away from selling directly myself into running call centers, buying leads, and trying to get the salespeople to get the most out of the leads.
Yeah.
And I did pretty well at it, pretty early. I was only in the job sort of 2 or 3 months, and it started to look pretty obvious that I was going to do well at it. So I moved up pretty quickly from there. But there's a ceiling, isn't there? I mean, when you're working for somebody else, you're only ever going to get a decent salary that I was getting, and the occasional bonus. So all of this praise that I was getting from all of the company owners and the bosses is all great, but it doesn't translate into money in your pocket, does it?
No.
So I always thought that I'm going to find something. I will end up doing something myself at some point. It just has to be the right opportunity. Yeah. But the last job I was in, I couldn't see a way out.
Really?
I was pretty desperate at that point just to find something to do myself. And there's a million call centers out there, isn't there? Everyone can go and try and mix in such massive competition, but this was new, and it was so nobody was doing it. And I thought if I'm early enough here, I can really make hay, and that's how it's panned out.
Nice. And how were you kind of compensated with like bonuses and things like that in the job? Was it based on the team's performance, or well, what did that look like? And how,
Generally,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, it depends. If it was a kind of running the call centre job and getting sales staff, it tended to be a percentage of whatever profit was made from my team or the floor, or depending on my
yeah,
role.
yeah,
I obviously did quite a few roles as business development as well. So
yeah,
that was bringing cases in, making sure that you've got the right profitability in your partners and things like that.
sure.
But you know, the one theme here was that none of them ever delivered what they promised at interview. You
Really,
know, they promise you that
really.
you're going to double your salary, and when it comes
And you
down to it, you
happen.
hit your target and they double it, don't they, the month after? And I just
Yeah,
kept hitting that wall.
yeah, okay. And do you think? I mean, I've seen the way that you've operated since you came in, since after you bought the book, right? And you've got entrepreneur and kind of working for yourself written all over you. You know, like if you're anything like me, because I was an engineer back in the day, right? And like it was such a slog going into the office. And you've always got a smile on your face, right? But for me, I was just like, I freaking hated it. Was the plan always to kind of get out with your own kind of idea, your own business? Always, right?
Always. I
Always.
had, in fact, I've told a few people this actually. I've had a policy of opting out of every pension that at every job that I went into as a matter of principle on the basis that if I opt in, it's almost an admittance that I'm going to need it. So,
Like a kind of an ego thing, right? Like I'm not doing that because I'm going to make something myself.
100%. I was
Yeah,
convinced that I
interesting.
was going to, at some point, make 1 million.
You knew it.
That was what I
You knew
wanted.
it.
So it was just a point of principle for me that I thought, well, if I just stay in this pension, that's almost like an admittance to myself that I'm going to need that pension.
Yeah,
So I've opted out every single time. And do you know what?
that's
Three
cool.
three or four times when these little business ideas I've got haven't worked,
Yeah,
maybe a little bit nervous, but
that's cool.
it's kept me
Yeah,
focused. Yeah.
it's interesting, right? Because I was thinking about this because I believe in like manifesting stuff, right? So if you set the intention at some point early on in your life, like business life or adolescence, or you know, if you're looking for sporting goals or whatever, then I believe if you think about that enough, like if it's constantly in your head, eventually it will kind of come true, right? It depends what our attention is and what we put our energy towards, right? Our brain energy towards. And for me, it's always kind of come true eventually, right? If we focus on it enough for long enough and set that intention early doors. And I imagine you kind of had that as well
Yeah,
back in the
I
day.
mean,
You always
it
had it.
becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? At that
Yeah,
point, because whether you're sort of into the universe things or not, it becomes a singularity focus for you.
yeah,
And the more you think about it, the more you get invested in it. And I've
yeah.
got a bit of an addictive personality anyway when it comes to
Same.
something that flicks my switch. You know, if I
Yes.
think I'm all or nothing, I can either never look
Yeah,
at it again or I'm 100% of my time on it. And
yeah.
yeah, that kind of, I suppose, fits that entrepreneurial spirit, doesn't it? Where
Exactly.
if you're that focused on I am going to do this, it tends to happen because you kind of back yourself.
Exactly. And here's the thing as well, like that I realized as I got a little bit older and more experienced is that if you believe in yourself or what you're selling, right, that allows you to detach from the outcome so much, right? Because you know if you've got someone that comes on as a client, that you can get them results, and if you don't get them the results, it's because there's been a roadblock on the way, which means you have to hit that road and go around it and find a way because like we're getting AI to do the work here, right?
Yeah,
That's the thing. Like that's never been done before in human history, right? There's always been a workforce behind it. So if we haven't been able to get it to work, where we can go around, there's always a way, right? Like, and that's what's cool when you have that confidence.
100%.
Things change, definitely. So tell me about like, you know, what your kind of personal life was like inside that, you know, before you kind of went off and did your own thing, like the situation at home and you know, money was tight or whatever, right? Like what was the situation back then and how was life back then?
living paycheck to paycheck. It's like, the vast majority of people on the planet, I suppose, the ones that are sort of gainfully employed.
Yeah.
But everyone lives beyond the means.
Yeah.
It's a
Credit
human
card
thing,
debt.
isn't it? It's a human thing to want and to acquire.
Consume.
And you, especially in the good times, when the bonuses are good and you're in a decent job, nothing lasts forever. And
No.
unless you've got some kind of longevity there, you end up spending beyond your means and being left in a position, like I have been a few times, where that's manageable debt. It's easy. I'll pay it off in no time. All of a sudden, you get in a position where you can't, and then you're left holding the bag, aren't you, at that point? And that's happened quite a few times to me over the last sort of 20 years.
That's tough, man. I remember those days as well. It's ironic you're working in insolvency and probably having the same problems as you're speaking to people on the phone with.
Exactly, but it gives you a blasé attitude towards debt. Working in the insolvency, you know what the powers
write it
are.
off.
You know what you should pay and what you shouldn't. But I mean, it never really got that bad. I've never been bankrupt. I never had anything sort of serious against me. But certainly to the point where a few hairy moments, and look, there was no way out of the level of debt that was in. No way.
Mm-hmm. And how did it work? Like, what kind of stuff did you try? Like, you had that entrepreneurial streak. If you're anything like me, you started trying stuff. Like I actually sold pot plants in a pub car park rather than work in my fancy engineering degree job. That was the story that I tell, where I told my mum, and she's like almost started crying. She forked out on private school education, and I was selling pot plants in a pub car park. But I told my dad, and he was like, he didn't say it at the time, but he said, that's when I knew you were desperate enough to kind of make it, right? Because you would do anything.
Sounds like a sensible bloke. It's look, that kind of thing is a big indicator at the beginning, because I mean, my first attempt was in 2008, just after I got made redundant as a mortgage advisor because the world fell apart. I bought HDMI was fairly new at the time. I know it's standard now, isn't it, everywhere? But I actually imported it was 1,000 cables. It was 500 of each length, HDMI cables from China, and set up an eBay shop.
I didn't know this.
It didn't work in the end, but in fact, do you know what? I bet there's still about 600 up in my mum and dad's loft.
No way.
From all that time ago. That didn't work. And then I tried, the boom of the e-cig thing. I started an e-cig shop, started selling liquids online. That didn't really work because then Google banned advertising on
in that niche.
E-liquid. So that didn't work. As you know, past that, I started my own insolvency business, a packager. There was a few other harebrained schemes along the route. Until this, but I think it was 4 attempts before this.
Painful, right? But you know what? Like, when we look at your journey since then, it was all meant to be, right? Because if you didn't have that network of people to hit up since you bought the book, then things would have been a lot harder for you, right? So,
absolutely,
this is what I was talking about, right? If you set the intention and you just go for it, you can't really fail because you use everything that you experienced a little bit later on. You just don't know when you're going to use it. So I totally get it. So engaging like in a new business idea, like to leave your job and start an AI agency like you've done now, there must have been always like some apprehension around that. What was that apprehension and what did that look like when you decided to kind of go all in? Were you scared? What was the situation there?
Scared doesn't even really cover it at the time, but the thing I was so convinced when I got the book, and even from the first few pages when I read it, it made sense to me. It spoke to me because of that 20 years of trying to buy leads and trying to make money by spending a little bit online and spending £1 online and getting £2 back. Years and years of trying to get those marginal gains and the sleepless nights and even just trying to get all the advisors to do the same thing at the same time was difficult. So as soon as I read the concept, that was the thing that hooked me into the book initially. Just the concept on its own, and made me want to find out more about it. But as soon as I started reading it and it started solving every problem that I'd had over the last 20 years, I thought, this is something, and it's early, and there's nobody else doing it as far as I know, because I know a lot of people in sales in big positions. So I just knew it was groundbreaking. So
Yeah.
I had a decision to make. I mean, the first thing I did, as you know, was go and two of my old employers, I won them as clients before I
Yeah.
even looked at how to
In
do
your
it.
job.
Yes,
You had them
that's
as
it.
clients before you quit your job, right?
Yes, that's it.
Mm.
So I say won them as clients. I just got them to say, all right, let's have a trial. So
Yeah.
I ran it as a side thing. No fear at this point because I was thinking it's fine. I've
Still
got a job.
employed.
I've got a safety net.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'll just kind of set it up and run it on the side. And it became evident pretty early that the size they wanted to run at and how much work was involved to do it, I couldn't do both.
Yeah.
So, as you know, I handed my notice in just after Christmas last year.
Yeah.
Um,
And just
and
remind me, how long did it take from you getting the book to quitting your job? What was the time frame?
3 weeks,
3 weeks.
4 weeks, maybe. Yeah. Well, I
You're
decided
messing around.
after 3 weeks I was going to quit my job. I got
Yeah.
my Christmas wage out of the way, and then at the beginning of January, that's when I handed my notice in.
Incredible.
At the
Incredible.
time, I had no paying clients. I had debts. I had no savings.
All
I didn't
in.
really. It had to work, but it's more of what
Yeah.
we were saying before. It's the reason why you don't opt in for a pension.
Yeah.
It's you need that fire,
Yeah.
that drive, that this has to work, and you will do it at all costs. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the fear drove me on, I suppose.
Exactly. And that brings me on to the next question. Did you have any apprehensions in your own ability?
Only around the tech, really. I
Mm.
mean, you'll remember that I messaged you, didn't you, at the time, and I was like, "How much tech is in this?" Because look, I'm a hobbyist tech person. I've built computers before. I've always found out how things work.
Yeah.
I couldn't be described as a tech guy. I've never really been that. And that was the only apprehension. I mean, you mentioned before about having ultimate belief in yourself. When it comes to sales, I fully
You're
believe
good
there
at
is
it.
nobody in any room that knows more than I do. And I still
Yeah.
think that now,
Yeah.
and regardless of whether that's the case or not, I believe it. So
Yeah.
as far as creating
Yeah.
an Android to be able to be me in any
Yes.
situation, I was fully confident in the
Yeah.
tech. It was
Took you a
daunting.
while. Yeah, it took you a while.
But bearing in mind when I quit my job, I still hadn't looked at the tech at that point, so it was a double risk really because I might not have been able to do it.
I call it jumping out of an airplane and building a parachute on your way
That's
down,
the
right? Like that's my catchphrase. And people that come in after they bought the book do the best. They're the ones that do the best when they just take the offer, which is, do you have any old leads that we can turn into sales using AI and SMS on a performance basis, which means that we don't get paid until you get paid. It's the offer of the century, right? Like no client you go to will ever say no to that, right? Like why would they say no?
We've still not had a no.
Still not had a no, right?
Over a year in, we've not had a no.
And if they do say no, I usually, it feels like if it's on Zoom, I feel like I have to reach into the screen, like take them around the neck and go, there's something wrong with you. Like, do you not understand what we're doing here, right? Like,
We treat it as a red flag.
Yeah.
If anybody on that initial pitch starts questioning whether they should do it or not, we treat that as a red flag. As they're probably not going to be.
Something's a bit wrong there,
Yeah, the collaborative partners that we want out of it.
Yeah, exactly. What was the kind of one thing you wanted to achieve after you bought my book? Like, what was the goal?
Financial freedom. That's it for me and my family. I mean, everything else, and with it, the associated happiness. I mean, the big thing for me, and this is a thing that I say to everyone, I say to my son, I say to my family, everybody is just trying to get to happy, aren't they?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's living under a bridge, whether it's having financial freedom, everyone's just trying to get to the stage where they wake up, look in the mirror each morning and smile. And for me, that was financial freedom for myself, my family, and the people that I love. So that was my singular focus.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we go through different stages of chasing material success and being able to get yourself on, and you'll be experiencing this soon, if not already, right? Until you get yourself on level footing, right? And then the goals, materialistic goals, they no longer carry as much weight. It feels like I'm selling myself short if I'm going after more material goals, right? Like once you have enough, then to go for more, it just doesn't make sense. The more important things are having the time to be able to take the afternoon off, spend time with your son, or go away on holiday and not have to worry consistently about being on your phone or checking emails or whatever that is, right? Like priorities change over time. But I totally get, when I first started, like I just wanted to make enough money to like pay my mortgage and not have to go back to my engineering job that I hated. Like that was enough for me to be super, super happy. And like every day since then, I've been like jumped out of bed. I jump out of bed at like 5:30 every morning because it's just like so much fun what we do, right?
Yeah. And that's it. It's interesting you mentioned the material. I've never really been a material guy anyway. I'm not looking at acquiring Lamborghinis or anything like that. I just want everybody that I love to have a smile on their face because they don't have the dark cloud of money. There's no barrier for the money that they need to do the things that they want to do and to live a happy life. And that remains my focus, and it will always be that way. I'm not interested in collecting stuff. I just want experiences and happiness for everybody.
Yeah, totally get it. All right, cool. So once you bought the book, was there anything we did that like exceeded your expectations on what you were going to get after you bought?
Oh, 100%. 100%. That, I mean, the community that off the back of the book, the community you've got in School Royer is, I mean, it's just an absolute beastly form of loads of people from all around the world with the same focus, the same attitude to I can do this, the help, the advice. I mean, the platform that you provide initially with the book is great, but what you get on the back of that is, if you decide to go further than that and get into the course, that's where the gold is. And when I read through the book, that gave me everything that I needed to be able to set up an AI agency. You technically don't need anything else, but if you want the extra 5% at the end of it that really pushes you on, that community and what you've set up is amazing.
Yeah, so we've got people, if you're listening to this, if you buy the book, you get access to our AAA Ninjas, AI Automation Ninjas community, plus you get full video training on how to set things up if you're more of a visual person rather than a reader, which I am. Some people like to read, other people like to watch. We had to do that, right? Otherwise people wouldn't get to where they needed to go. So that's cool. If you could sum it up quickly, what did we help you achieve?
First of all, being able to set something up that made me the master of my own destiny, which was always the important thing anyway. I'm no good working for other people. I needed to kind of be
not anymore anyway.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I needed to be in control of myself, and the financial freedom that I would have come in time actually came very quickly. We're in a position now where my sister's in Germany. I've told you this, haven't I? And I pay for the kids' nursery fees over there, which my sister has helped me untold times over the last 20 years with the issues that I mentioned earlier. In my harebrained ideas. My mum and dad are in retirement. They didn't have the biggest pension pots, but now they can do what they want to do and enjoy their retirement. I work when I feel. At the moment that tends to be 14 hours a day, but it won't be at times. All of those things, like the getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and freezing and traveling an hour to work and having to stay there whether I've got anything to do or not, just doesn't exist for me anymore. So just unlocking a life where I can live on my terms and look after the people that I love.
Yeah.
I mean, there's countless other things that you've done, but that's it. That's the thing that has been the biggest change for me and the thing that I'm happiest about.
If you look financially, you messaged me something along the lines of you make more in a month now than you did in a year, or
it's getting close to a week now.
In a week, wow.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned what I wanted when I started this. I was just looking to get to 10 grand a month. That was a lot of money for me at the time. And I mean, we make that in a few days now. And we're only really just getting started. We've got regular money coming in, but all of the huge companies that we're dealing with, it's just the first part of the campaign. It's going to roll and roll. So yeah, we've got big plans for next year, and We've got a golden figure in monthly golden figure in mind for the end of next year, which I won't tell you yet, but it's
the sky is the limit. The sky's the limit, right? And you know this as well as I do, right? Like we have our offer, which is what I said before, the offer of the century. Do you have any old leads we can turn into sales using AI and SMS on a performance basis? They say yes, which they always do. And then what I've learned from you and what I've seen you do is be very good at like getting your clause in, right? You help with document collection, you help with speak to lead. Yeah, I don't even know what else, DocuSign, credit checking. I don't even know what you're doing now, right? Like you managed to get your clause into these clients to the point where how are they ever going to leave you, right? Like I don't see how they can leave you unless they buy you out. Right?
That's the biggest thing. We are so embedded in our clients. The best thing about it as well is that we don't build for them, we build for us, which means that whether they want to leave you or not, they would have to walk away from the technology. If they can go to a competitor if they want, but they'd have to start again. And none of the others really offer what we do. So it gets to the point where if you manage to win them first, I will happily take a loss for 2 or 3 months at the start on the basis that when it does start and it is working and everybody is happy, that's it. You've locked them in forever, because that learning process that you have at the beginning can't be replicated. They don't want to start again. So the grounding we've got now, we're making good money now. But the best thing about anybody looking to buy the book is if you give this offer to the right people. As a salesperson, I know this. You give it to the right people, you get them on the hook. They will say yes, because who would say no to it? Spend the time to get the bot right. Once you're in for good. And nobody's ever going anywhere. So you can set yourself up very, very quickly with this and make good money quickly and build a sustainable business for whatever AI does next.
Exactly. And that's the thing as well, is that there's plenty of like third party kind of bot tools out there, right? But what I caught you saying before is that you make your bot like you, right? Because you spent 2 decades selling in call centers, figuring out how to move a person on the phone from a cold lead into a sale, right? So now, and I've been very good at this as well, because I've been selling stuff too for a long time now. What we do inside the book is teach. We call it a sales android, right? It's not like a AI bot. It makes sales for the clients because it uses a combination of what you've learned and how you've finally tuned your sales chops over the years, and also direct response marketing. And when you put that together with AI technology, just blows clients away, right? So you can't really, like, unless people have bought my book as well, they can't really duplicate what we've done, right? Because most of it's copyright, a lot of it's copywriting and kind of psychology behind the hand raiser and all that stuff, which I'm not going to get into here, but that's where the magic is, right?
Of course, it's all psychology. But sales has always been psychology. It's the old adage that you can't sell anything to anybody who doesn't need it. It's just impossible to do. But more than that, the good thing about my job hopping over the last 20 years is that I've worked in finance, I've worked in business to business, I've worked in most type of sales. So I know what the ideal customer looks like. I know what the demographic is. I know what name we should use for the bot. I know what gender, I know what age, I know all of those things that are in my head. So if I get a new business that comes to me, I know exactly who to create. I often tell the clients it's more like recruitment than it is technology, because I need to know everything. If you were going to pay £1 million for your perfect employee, what would they look like? Where are they from? Experience? Where did they study? Have they been traveling? And I need you to give me all that information, and I will hand you back your perfect employee that can do 1 million jobs at once instead of one.
Yeah, I like it. That's really cool. I like that angle. Very cool. I'm going to steal that one.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. This is a bit cheesy, right? But would it be safe to say your life's a little bit easier now than when you bought the book from us?
I can't even put a number on how much easier it is than it was then. Mainly from a mental point of view. That's where it really, really sort of kicks in, because even though I've calmed down a bit now, it is only 13-hour days rather than 18-hour days, and it's only 5 days a week instead of 7. But still, the I've had easier previous jobs, but it's the monotony because of the way my head works, your head works, and then anybody who kind of has this drive.
Yeah.
I can't do the get up, go and work for somebody else, do a monotonous job all the time.
No.
So my life has become infinitely easier. If I want to take the missus out for a meal at 2:00 on a Wednesday, we do it because that's just what we feel like doing there. That kind of freedom is just my peace of mind is nowhere near it used to be.
Yeah, mate, I'm so proud of you. You've done so well. I mean, what more can I say? And, for anyone that's thinking about buying, this is the last question. For anyone that's thinking about buying the Instant AI agency, what would you say to them?
Anybody watching this who doesn't buy it, there's two things, isn't there? They either don't think it'll work or they don't believe they can do it. There can't be any other reason outside of that because, I mean, it's an absolute no-brainer. It's like an off-the-shelf business. I could have spent 2 or 3 years trying to build up a call centre, which I knew for 20 years, and still not have really hit a real profit at this point, what happened instead was I was making 5 figures a month within 3 months of getting it. There is literally, I don't think there's ever been any other business in our lifetime anyway, It's next industrial revolution, they call it, don't they? There's never been an opportunity like this to take something without massive overheads and to be able to run it on the scale of a multinational corporation.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's ever been anything like it.
Yeah. How big are some of your clients? What's their annual revenue?
Huge. Yeah. I mean, we've just actually had the go ahead from one that's doing about $400 million.
$400 million a year.
In fact, we're in talks with one that's doing 1.5 billion.
Wow.
At the moment, but and we've also got some household names that you'd know the jingles.
Wow.
In the UK. One of them we're especially proud of is the biggest in their industry, and everybody would know the advert and they'd know their jingle, and it's just rolled on to the stage where we've they all talk, all these big companies, they all talk to each other, and we keep getting referred, but that all came from that first client, do a good job, everyone gets excited, it's AI, they'll say, I've got a mate who runs this call centre doing this job, and it'll roll on.
Yeah.
And it all starts with that book. Buy the book, and it all starts. And it all
That's
starts
the thing, right? Sorry to interrupt you. That's the thing that I find really incredible about being in this day and age, right? Because we're at an advantage, right? Because no one is an expert in AI, right? Because it's only been around like 18 months, really properly, right? So anyone can start from scratch and learn a little bit by picking up the book and position themselves as like an AI expert. And they're not lying, right? They know way more than their client does, which makes it incredibly easy to sell.
It's mad.
So
we're actually an accredited Microsoft AI agency now, AI partner.
No way.
With less than 12 months. Say again?
Was that hard to get?
Not really, no. I mean, we signed up because we've built our own system on the back of it now, and we use the Microsoft infrastructure for it. So we got onto their founders program. We ticked quite a few of their boxes early because we'd already started using it. In fact, we go direct through Azure for OpenAI now. We don't really leave the infrastructure, and they've taken a bit of a shine to us. So we're just knocking up the signatures at the moment for the bottom of the emails to put that on.
Wow. That's incredible, man. Well, mate, I tell you what, as I said, I'm so proud of you. You've done so well. But, credit to you. No, credit to you because you took action, right? You jumped out of that aeroplane and you got cracking. And that's what it's all about. So, Rob, I'll leave you there, mate. Have an awesome day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Dan. See you soon.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that video. So my book, The Instant AI Agency, completely changed Rob's life, right? Like, it's a game changer. Not just so much because it's a great book, but because it's just the right book at the right time, okay? Things are blowing up in the marketing world now. Clients know they need AI. They just have no idea how to implement it. That's what my book teaches. You should check it out. It's in the description below. It's only $14.40. Please do enjoy it. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.